Section 4.7, Special Products. So we're going to multiply polynomials one more time. We've been doing this a fair amount. So this is our last section for multiplying polynomials. And then we'll talk about dividing polynomials for the next two sections, or the next two lessons at least. All right, so first let's talk about what happens when we square a binomial, okay? So remember that we do have an exponent property, a power of a product property that says we can distribute this exponent to the inner exponents, right? These invisible ones, and we get this, okay? But remember, that's a power of a product, not the power of a sum. So do not, on these, I repeat, do not try to distribute the exponents, okay? This is a very common mistake. And this here does not equal this here, okay? So do not try to distribute the exponent, okay? It's not the same thing. All right. So what we can do and what we know is that when we square something, we multiply it by itself, right? So a plus b quantity squared is a plus b multiplied by a plus b. And we know how to do this, right? We can FOIL. We can multiply first times first. So a times a is a squared. We can multiply a times b. So a times b is ab. B times a is ab, right? Or ba. Remember, commutative property of multiplication. We can write it either way. And then we have b times b, which is our last times last. So that's b squared. Okay, so we did first, outer, inner, last, right? And now we can combine like terms. So our ABs are like terms. So we get a squared, AB plus AB is 2AB, and then the b squared. All right, so that's what happens when we multiply, or when we square a binomial. Notice that these middle two terms came out the same, right? So whatever the middle product is, or whatever the product of outer times outer and inner times inner, that will always be the same, right? Because this is the same as this, and this is the same as this, right? Okay, so when you get those two ABs, you just double it, okay? So this is going to be a shortcut that we can use for other problems, okay? So I'll show you this both ways. I'll show you with the shortcut and without the shortcut, and you can choose which way you prefer. All right, so the first way I could do is just multiply this by itself, right? I can just write it out expanded form, and then I can just FOIL, right? So w times w is w squared, w times 7 is 7w, 7 times w is 7w, and 7 times 7 is 49. All right, then we have like terms. So 7w plus 7w is 14w plus 49, and so there's our final answer, okay? So that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it if, just kind of the normal way, right? Is just write it out in expanded form, and then we just FOIL and then combine like terms, and we get our final answer, right? So next I'll show you with the shortcut. So remember that with our shortcut, we start out doing this a long way, but whenever we square a binomial, we're always going to end up with this situation, okay, where we get the first term squared, double the product of a and b, the first and the second term, and then the last term squared, okay? So that's our shortcut. So I wrote that over here, right? So in this case, a is w, right? That's our a. And then our b is 7, right? So if I'm using the shortcut, it's going to be a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, Okay. And so A is W, so it's going to be W squared, right? Plus 2 times W times 7, okay? Because this is A and B, right? Plus 7 squared, okay? And that's really, you don't necessarily have to show this work on these. You can just go straight to the answer, but that's kind of the mental math, right? So it's W squared and it's 7 squared. That's the easy part. And then the middle part is the part that's a little less intuitive. But we get 2 times W times 7 is 14W, right? So there we went straight to the answer, right? So it saves us a little time, got the same answer. So if that makes sense, definitely feel free to use it. If that's a little confusing to you, then this way may be a little more straightforward, right? Maybe a little less to remember. Just remember to expand and then FOIL like we normally do. All right, let's try one more example, and this time I'll use the shortcut and go straight to the answer. But like I said, if you want to use just the FOIL method, you're welcome to do that. So if I'm using the shortcut, then what I'm going to do is identify this is A and this is B, right? So remember, it's going to be A squared, so it'll be 3Z squared plus 2 times A times B, right? And then plus B squared, right? So 5K is the B. All right, so I'm going to do all that. So 3Z squared is 9Z squared, right? So this is actually where we can use the power of a product property, right? So 3 squared is 9, Z squared is Z squared. Here I can multiply these together. 2 times 3 times 5 is 30. And then we'll have KZ or ZK. All right. And then I'll square 5K. So 5K multiplied by 5K is 25K squared. All right, and that's it. All right, and remember the other way you could have done this if you wanted to is you could have said, okay, well, let me just multiply 3Z plus 5K by itself and then FOIL, right? And you would get the same answer. All right, so your preference.